for championship points, for chances to close out the biggest win of her life. And she let every single one of them slip. That's the story you need to understand before we discuss anything happening on center court this week. Because what's about to unfold between Alex Eala and Maya Joint isn't just another second-round match buried in the Wimbledon draw. It's a rematch nobody asked for, and everybody needs. A continuation of something that started a year ago and never actually finished. So, let's rewind the tape all the way back to June 28, 2025, to a tournament in Eastbourne that most casual fans forgot about within a week, but that these two players will never forget. Alex was a relative unknown back then, at least by ranking standards, sitting somewhere outside the top 60, completely off the radar outside hardcore tennis circles. And yet she was tearing through that draw like she had something to prove, because she did. She became the first Filipina in history to reach a WTA Tour level final. Think about the weight of that for a second. Not just a career milestone, a national one, carried on the shoulders of a 21-year-old who had trained an ocean away from home. She dropped the first set, stormed back to dominate the second 6-1, a set so lopsided it looked like the match was essentially done. And then she found herself serving for the championship in the third set tiebreak. This was it. This was the moment. And across the net stood a 19-year-old named Maya Joint, a kid with a game that hadn't fully arrived yet, but a nervous system that apparently had, because what happened next is the kind of thing that gets replayed in a player's head for years. Alex reached championship point. Joint saved it. Alex reached championship point again. Joint saved that one too. A third chance gone. A fourth, also gone. 4 match points. For times Joint refused to let the door close, until somehow, impossibly, she snatched the tiebreak 12-10 and walked off with the trophy while Alex stood there trying to process what had just been taken from her. That's not just a loss. That's a scar. The kind of result that doesn't fade with time so much as it sits quietly in the back of your mind, waiting. Now fast forward exactly 365 days. Same country, same grass. Except this time the stage isn't Eastbourne, it's Wimbledon, the most hallowed piece of tennis real estate on the planet. And the stakes have been raised to a level neither of them had access to a year ago. Alex arrives as the 29th seed, the first Filipina ever to be seeded at this tournament, ranked a career-high 32 in the world, riding the best grass court form of her life. Joint arrives ranked 87, a number that tells you almost nothing about the chaos of her season, having dropped 11 straight matches on tour before walking onto center court the day before and doing something absolutely nobody predicted, beating Serena Williams in 3 sets in the American legend's long-awaited return to singles tennis. So here's the question hanging over this entire matchup, and it's a genuinely fascinating one. Which version of each player actually shows up? Do we get the players the rankings currently describe, or do we get the players that a shared history at Eastbourne somehow pulls back out of them the moment they're standing across the net from each other again? Let's start with Alex, because her road to this point has been nothing short of remarkable. She kicked off the grass court swing back in early June at the Birmingham Classic and simply won the whole thing, her second WTA 125 title, grinding through a 3-set final against Nicola Bardonkova that finished 5-7, 6-3, 7-5. That title wasn't just a nice trophy for the shelf. It confirmed something her coaching staff at the Rafa Nadal Academy had been quietly building toward for well over a year, that her lefty game, with that skidding serve and those flat, penetrating ground strokes, was essentially engineered for grass. The low bounce plays perfectly into her timing. The faster surface rewards her instinct to take the ball early and rush opponents. And her net game, which on clay can occasionally feel like an unnecessary flourish, suddenly becomes a genuine weapon on a surface where hesitation gets punished and aggression gets rewarded. After Birmingham, she headed to Queen's Club and ran directly into Iva Jovic, losing 6-2, 6-2 in the second round, a scoreline that on paper looked like a genuine warning sign. But what came next made that loss feel almost irrelevant. She traveled to Berlin for the WTA 500 and delivered the 2 best back-to-back wins of her entire season. First, she took down world number 2 Elena Rybakina 7-5, 6-4 in the round of 16. Then she dispatched world number 8 Anastasia Potapova 6-3, 6-4 to reach the semifinals. 2 top 10 scalps, back-to-back on grass, from a 21-year-old who had never beaten a top 10 player on this surface before that week. That's not incremental progress. That's an announcement. She eventually fell in the Berlin semifinal to Linda Noskova 6-2, 6-4, then suffered an early exit at Bad Homburg against Elise Mertens. And that inconsistency actually tells us something important. Her ceiling on grass is legitimately elite, capable of trading blows with the very best and coming out ahead. But her floor can still drop without warning against opponents who disrupt her rhythm rather than feed into it. Players like Rybakina and Potapova give her pace and structure she can counter and redirect. Players like Jovic and Noskova smother that rhythm before it ever gets started. So, where does joint fall on that spectrum? That's the real tactical heartbeat of this matchup. In the first round here at Wimbledon, Alex looked every bit like a player who belongs on the surface, dismantling her opponent 6-1, 6-2 in just 77 minutes, cracking 22 winners, landing 16 of 21 net approaches, facing only 2 break points all match, and saving both. It wasn't reckless aggression. It was controlled, calculated aggression, the kind that comes from a player who trusts exactly where each point is headed and isn't second-guessing herself mid-rally. Her lefty serve kept pulling her opponent wide on the ad side over and over, and whenever the return floated back short, Alex was already moving forward to finish at the net. That serve +1 pattern is the foundation of everything she does on grass right now. And it's humming. Now flip over to joint side of the draw, and the numbers tell a much starker story. Heading into Wimbledon, her 2026 record sat at 2 wins and 13 losses. She's won just 15% of her matches this year. Her ranking has collapsed from a career high of 28 back in February all the way down to 87. An injury after Indian Wells knocked her off tour for 2 full months, and when she came back, nothing clicked. First-round exits at Roland Garros, at Nottingham, and painfully at Eastbourne itself, the exact tournament she'd won 12 months earlier. Her serve, which was never a dominant weapon to begin with, has completely unraveled. She's winning barely 46% of her service games this year, averaging under 1.5 aces per match, with a first serve speed that ranks in the bottom 6% of the entire tour. And yet, she just beat Serena Williams on center court. Not with some flawless, dominant performance, not with a miracle serving clinic. She won because she refused to stop competing. She took the first set 6-3, dropped a brutally tight second set tiebreak 8-6 when Williams flashed some of that vintage power everyone remembered, then broke Williams 3 times in the deciding set to close it out 6-3. She chased down everything. She made Williams hit 1 extra ball on almost every single point. And in the moments that actually mattered, in that third set, it was joint finding clean, confident contact while Williams sprayed shots long and into the net. So here's what that Serena win does tell us about joint heading into this match, and what it doesn't. What it tells us is that whatever psychological weight had been crushing her during that losing streak, the simple act of walking onto center court and beating a 23-time Grand Slam champion, even a 44-year-old one returning from 4 years away, has handed her something no amount of practice or pep talks ever could. Real, earned momentum, forged in survival. She admitted afterwards in a genuinely raw post-match interview that she barely slept the night before, that her legs wouldn't cooperate during the warm-up, that she honestly didn't know how she managed to start the match the way she did. That kind of honest disorientation followed by a 3-set win suggests a player who discovered something in the middle of the fight, rather than someone who walked in already possessing it. The real question is whether she can find that same state again just 48 hours later, against a completely different kind of opponent. And here's what that Serena win doesn't tell us. It doesn't tell us that joint has actually fixed the problems that have haunted her all season. Williams was playing her first singles match in nearly 4 years. Her movement was limited. Her court coverage, while occasionally brilliant in flashes, faded noticeably by the third set. Joint's baseline game worked because she was up against someone who couldn't sustain pressure over long rallies anymore. Alex Eala is 21 years old, has been grinding through competitive matches every single week for months, and hits the ball with more consistent pace off the ground than Williams was generating yesterday. The speed coming off Alex's racket, particularly on that forehand and that lefty serve, is going to be noticeably faster and far more relentless than anything Joint faced on center court. Tactically, this matchup appears to favor Alex on nearly every measurable front. She's taller by 5 inches. She hits flatter, which on grass means her shots stay lower and skid through the court quicker than a topspin-heavy game would. Her left-handed serve creates angles that right-handed opponents consistently struggle to neutralize, especially on the advantage side, where she can swing the ball out wide to the backhand or jam it straight into the body. Joint has historically been a solid returner, but in 2026, she's struggled to put real pressure on even average servers. And Alex is not an average server. Her delivery isn't a dominant first-strike weapon in the way Rybakina's is, but it's awkward, well-placed, and precise enough to consistently draw short weak returns or steal free points outright on the surface. But here's where the ghost of Eastbourne creeps back into the conversation, because the numbers said Alex should have won that match too. She was the better player for the vast majority of that final. She dominated the second set 6-1 so completely that it looked like Joint had nothing left. And then somehow Joint found something. She found a way to absorb the pressure, redirect it, and make Alex feel the full crushing weight of trying to close out a match she was supposed to have already won. Joint's greatest strength was never one specific shot or one clever tactical pattern. It's her almost stubborn capacity to stay alive in matches she appears to be losing, her ability to stretch rallies, to force her opponent to hit one more shot than they wanted to make the finish line feel further away than it actually is. On grass, where points are shorter by nature and the margin for that kind of grinding resistance is much narrower, this quality becomes less reliable, but it doesn't vanish. Joint's backhand might be the single shot that keeps her in this fight. It's compact, well-timed, and she disguises her cross-court and down-the-line options better than most players ranked anywhere near her. If she can find a way to neutralize Alex's wide serves, either by stepping around them to attack with the forehand or by slicing her backhand return low and deep to disrupt Alex's forward momentum, she has a real chance to drag rallies into uncomfortable territory. And Alex, for all her strengths, does not love being pulled into extended baseline exchanges on grass. She's at her most dangerous when a point is moving forward, when she's dictating with her first 2 or 3 shots and finishing at the net. Every rally that stretches past 7 or 8 shots is terrain that starts to favor Joint's patience over Alex's aggression. And ultimately, the serve is probably going to decide this whole thing. Here, Alex holds a genuinely massive edge. Joint's service numbers this year are borderline alarming. Winning under half of her service games means she's getting broken almost every other time she steps to the line, against a player whose return game has been sharpened by months of high-level grass court tennis and whose left-handed returns naturally generate angles that pull servers out of their comfort zone. Joint could find herself in serious trouble holding serve early. If Alex manages an early break, this match could easily follow the exact same script as her first-round win: controlled, efficient, over before the crowd has fully settled in. But Joint has been here before. Specifically, she's been in this exact position, supposed to lose to Alex, and didn't. And that psychological residue cuts both ways. For Joint, it's tangible, lived proof that she can survive Alex's very best tennis and still find a way through when the pressure peaks. For Alex, it's a memory that could plant just enough hesitation at exactly the wrong moment. Picture it. Alex builds a commanding lead, goes a break up in the second set, and then Joint starts slowly chipping away, point by point. Does Alex tighten up? Does the memory of those 4 unconverted championship points come creeping back into her racket hand at the worst possible time? Or has this past year of growth since Eastbourne, the Birmingham title, the wins over Rybakina and Potapova, the achievement of becoming a seeded player at a Grand Slam, given her enough armor, enough hard-won belief to close the door for good this time? And then there's the physical and emotional context of the match itself, which matters more than people tend to give it credit for. Joint just spent 2 hours and 22 minutes locked in a draining 3-set battle against Williams. The adrenaline in a match like that is extraordinary, the kind of chemical rush that can carry a player through an entire day and then leave them completely hollowed out. The turnaround between matches at Wimbledon typically runs about 48 hours, which is enough time to recover physically, but maybe not enough to recover emotionally. Joint poured everything she had into that center court performance, including the sheer emotional labor of beating her childhood idol in front of a crowd that, if we're being honest, desperately wanted her to lose. That kind of expenditure has a cost. And it doesn't usually show up in the first set of the next match. It shows up in the third, when the legs get heavy and the mind starts to drift somewhere it shouldn't. Alex, meanwhile, spent just 77 minutes on court in her opening round. She was barely tested. She burned through minimal physical and emotional reserves. She walks into this second round match fresher, sharper, carrying the quiet, settled confidence of a player who controlled her opening assignment from the very first point to the very last. And then there's the crowd, which adds one more layer to all of this. Wimbledon crowds are famously knowledgeable and they love an underdog storyline, but they also respond to genuine quality when they see it. Joint arrives carrying the reflected glow of her Serena upset. But the Filipino contingent in the stands has been following Alex everywhere since Melbourne, and they didn't travel to SW19 to watch her lose in the second round. Two players. One shared history. One unfinished match that has been sitting there for exactly a year. On paper, this should be straightforward. But if Eastbourne taught us anything, it's that Alex and Joint don't do straightforward. Tennis unfiltered.